Okay, accelerated two. Here we go. We are going to look at our um, first lesson, and it is the lesson Understand Representative Samples. And so you can turn in your textbook to page 556 and also have a blank sheet of notebook paper out. You'll be ready to take notes. On 556, you see three different uh, headings. All of these are sixth grade material that you may or may not have done, but these are the backbones of the seventh grade learning that we're going to do right now. So if you feel like you're struggling, you're going to want to go back to these topics and practice them more. And when you get to the textbook, this page 556 is the first thing I want you to do. And so we can verify that you're ready with those things. But in your notes, first thing I would like you to write down is valid claims. And I'm not going to lie, this one is a little tricky. So what does that mean? That means that it's going to allow us some good learning, okay? If we get tricked, if I get something wrong, I'm not restarting the video. I already did that one time. Instead, we're just going to read through it and learn. And if I have to pause the video and figure it out and then come back on, I will. But I'm going to do that instead of being all polished and doing a bunch of problems I already did, because I want you to hear my thinking as a mathematician. And as a mathematician, we're not always perfect, but we reason through things and we problem solve. And then when we get something wrong, we just learn. Okay? And you can do that. So here we go. You wrote that down, and now you are gonna write down all these words. You can pause the video and do it, and then we're gonna go through it. Anything else I write down on the screen, or anything I say that sounds important for you to remember, write it down in your notes. Here we go. The school board administered a reading test to all eighth grade students at High Achievers Charter School and determined that 10% of them were reading below grade level. Oh no. Based on this data, which of the following conclusions are valid? So again, we have eighth graders and they all eighth graders, right? Don't know anything about the seventh graders, but then 10% below grade level. Yeah. 10%, so which are valid? 10% of all eighth grade students are reading below grade level. I believe that's what it said. 10% of all students at the school are below. No, we don't know anything about the seventh or sixth grade. 10% of students in this sample are reading below grade level. That's true. But we cannot conclude anything about the eighth grade students. Well, that's not true because the sample is all the eighth grade students. So I'm going to say A. Let's see if I'm. Oh, I'm right. Okay. So now you can be confident. Okay, let's do another one. Bella wants to conduct a survey to determine how many of the residents of Forks believe in supernatural creatures. Which of the following survey methods will allow Bella to make a valid conclusion about the percentage of residents of Forks that believe in supernatural creatures? Okay, so now we're talking about how can we design a survey that's random. So what we want to look for is something that has no bias. So let's look at what she got. Ask a randomly selected sample of residents to answer the question anonymously. Okay, so you're asking you random, anonymous. That's the right answer. That has no bias. So let's see what the bias is in the second one. Ask a randomly selected sample of high school students to answer the question anonymously. So you see, that's only the high school students. And they're more likely to believe in supernatural creatures. You know, I taught high school for 9 years. So if you don't get the kids in there, the adults, then you don't have a random sample of the whole population. You have bias for what only high schoolers think. You want to do one more? We'll do one more, and then we're going to move on to inferences. Ross wants to conduct a survey of 400 classmates to determine, and I hope you're writing all these problems down, determine which candidate for class treasurer, Warren or Willa, is in the lead in the upcoming election. Ross will ask the question, if the election were today, which candidate would get your vote? Which of the following methods of surveying his classmates will allow Ross to make a valid conclusion about the candidate? Which candidate is in lead? What a good question for this election year, right? Okay, so let's see. Ask the 50 students in his first and second periods. Well, again, that's kind of like only asking the high schoolers, right? So I don't really like that one. Because if you're not in Ross's first or second period, then you're not included. So that's not random. Ask the 50 students. And he's just asking everyone. Put the names of all the students in a hat and draw 50 names. See, you see the randomness there? Ask those students whose names are drawn. Yep, that's it. I wonder if that's what the pollsters are doing with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Only time will tell. Okay, so the second Khan Academy assignment that you have this weekend, you know, usually you're going to have 4 or 5, but it's the first week of school, so we're just doing 2. You're welcome. I'm a nice guy. Okay. So making inferences from random samples. So now we're going to talk about, like, we have this random sample. What do we do with it? Well, you can make predictions about the whole population. So if we want to know who we think is going to be president, we can just get a random sample of like 100 people. And if it's truly random, we could get some good data that could actually tell us, you know, what it looks like. And that's actually what they do. Okay, so Wholesome Pizza surveyed a random sample of 40 Trinity Food Festival attendees about their favorite type of pizza. Of the attendees surveyed, 21 said that sausage pizza was their favorite type of pizza. There are 1,600 Trinity Food Festival attendees. Based on the data, what is the most reasonable estimate for the number of Trinity Food Festival attendees whose favorite type of pizza is sausage pizza? So here's how you do it. You take the denominator is the sample size. And I'm going to say true answers. So true answers, if you know they ask, is this true for you? And they say yes, it is. Out of the sample, that is our sample proportion. And then we have our population. And over that is true in the whole population. We can set these two things equal, like a proportion. Okay, so or we can even take this and forget about that. We can multiply it by the population. That's another thing. Okay, and that will give us the true in the population. So it's going to make more sense when I do the math. So if we randomly sample 40 people, that's our sample size. And 21 said the sausage is their favorite pizza. There are 1,600 people in the population. So I multiply 21 over 40. So we just take out our iPhones here. Don't take out your iPhone. and 21 divided by 40. And now we're going to multiply that by 1600. 840, which is a choice there. Thank goodness. Okay. So we shall do one more. A group of randomly selected members of the Foodies Food Club were asked to pick their favorite type of food. The bar graph, and yes, you should include that bar graph in your notes, shows the results of the survey. There are 244 members in the Foodies Club. Okay. So, based on the data, what is the most reasonable estimate for the number of Foodies members whose favorite food is Italian? So, in this random sample of the Foodies Club, we have, we want to know the Italian for the whole population. But in the sample, it's 14. What's the sample size? The sample size is going to be all these bars added together. So 6 plus 5 plus 14 plus 8 plus 2. Try to do this without my iPhone this time. So that's 11 plus 14 is going to be 25 plus 8 is 33 plus 2 is 35. Okay, and then multiply that by 244. So 14 over 35. And now multiply that by 244. And you get 97.6. So 97.6 would be 98. Ta-da! Okay, so that's how you do that. Now we're going to go over to the textbook, and you're going to see how what we just did prepared you. So the first thing after you do this 556, on 557, you can see a scenario, and without pulling, how can you research, how can you represent the opinion? So it's asking you, how can we design a random sample? So see if you can think of that. Okay. And so after you watch the video, the first thing you need to do is try both of these Khan Academy assignments and just get a score and fill out your traffic light problems. But then if you finish that, there's still time left in class. That's when this textbook work comes in. So answer this question on page 557. And then, so get this annotation tool out of my way, you're going to go here. Now, this is a very important page in the textbook because it's giving us vocabulary, which is one of the main reasons we really pay attention to the textbook. So it's telling us about a population, sample, representative sample, bias. All these words should be in your notes with their definition from the textbook, as well as in your own words, and then you know that you know it. Okay? And then also answering these questions as much as you can with the time you have, and then we'll get more to it later in the week when we work in groups. But I'm telling you this because it all is fair game for our assessment. Okay, so all of this is asking you if these samples are random and what the population is, what the sample is. And so based on what we just did, the Khan Academy, you should be able to answer most of these questions, as well as make inferences from the random sample. This is from the second Khan Academy assignment. So you should also be able to do this. See, they're multiplying that sample proportion by the population. I didn't even read it, but I can tell what they're doing. And so just based on those two Khan Academy assignments, you should be able to answer most of the questions from lessons 1 and 2. And the ones you can't answer are definitely ones we want to do in class. Okay, so I hope that that makes sense to you, and we'll talk in class from here. Bye.